You were never weak. That idea was planted in you like a seed, watered with guilt and shaped by expectations that were never yours. They told you to be nice, to wait, to smile even when disrespected, and while you were learning to please, others were learning to dominate. Every time you held back your voice to be accepted, a part of your power faded. Every time you apologized for simply existing, you handed the world another piece of your authority. The system thrives on obedience disguised as kindness, and those who question it, branded as cold, arrogant, dangerous. But maybe that's exactly what you need to become. Because what if your weakness isn't a flaw, but a design, a formula to keep you tame, predictable, easy to control? What if the guilt you carry was never yours to begin with? You were taught to ask for permission, not take initiative, and that mindset is exactly what keeps you replaceable. This video is not about rebellion. It's about remembering who you were before they softened your edges, before your presence became polite, before your strength became inconvenient. This is about reclaiming the parts of you that once intimidated, that once stood still while the world trembled. You're not here to be accepted by everyone. You're here to be respected by those who recognize power when they feel it. And if they don't, you keep walking. Because authority isn't built through smiles, it's built through boundaries, clarity, and silence that speaks louder than noise. So don't just watch this. Listen to it with the part of you that's been silent for too long, the part that's been waiting to wake up. And when it stirs, when it recognizes itself in the words, don't ignore it. That's your signal to rise. And this time, you're not asking for permission. If this hits something inside you, comment with one word: awake. It's more than a comment. It's your line in the sand. And while you're here, subscribe. Not because I told you to, but because you're done settling for the version of yourself they tried to create.
Weakness is not natural. It's engineered. Weakness doesn't grow by accident. It's cultivated carefully, intentionally, through repetition and emotional sabotage. You're told to forgive before you're allowed to feel anger. You're praised for being patient when you should have walked away. And slowly, the world convinces you that your silence is virtue, when in truth, it's surrender. Society doesn't reward your softness, it exploits it. Every time you hesitate to assert yourself, someone stronger steps forward, not because they're better, but because they weren't taught to apologize for existing. You weren't born timid. You were conditioned to flinch at your own reflection. Power was never denied to you. It was distracted. Machiavellian wisdom reminds us, the masses are kept obedient not by force, but by emotional programming. Obedience disguised as kindness, conformity sold as morality. You're not failing because you're incapable. You're following instructions that were never yours to begin with. And that's the real trap. Believing that being good is the same as being strong. Reclaiming yourself begins with confrontation. Ask, where did I learn to shrink? Who benefits from me staying quiet? Who praised me when I gave up my boundaries? Those aren't coincidences. They're control systems. And until you start questioning them, you're not living your life. You're following someone else's blueprint. Let's make this tangible. Start small. Decline a favor without over-explaining. Say no and don't flinch. Walk away from conversations where you're not being heard. You'll feel guilt at first, That's the old programming protesting. Push through it. That resistance is proof you're rewiring something deep. This isn't about becoming cruel. It's about becoming sovereign. There's a difference between being feared and being ignored. People fear those who have nothing to prove. They respect those who no longer seek approval. And you, my friend, are not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be undeniable. And once you feel that shift, that first moment of calm defiance, you'll wonder why you waited so long to take your power back. But that's just the beginning. Because next, we confront the lies you've been told your whole life. The lies that keep you weak. Most people aren't stuck because of their circumstances. They're stuck because of the lies they believed. Lies like, good things come to those who wait, or if you're kind, life will reward you. That's not wisdom, that's emotional anesthesia. It's how systems keep you compliant, while hungry minds take your place. The truth? The world doesn't reward intention, it responds to leverage. Lie number 1, moral superiority. You've been told it's better to suffer quietly than to resist loudly. But in the real world, moral purity without strategy is suicide. No one follows the nicest person in the room. They follow the one who speaks with certainty, who doesn't flinch when challenged. Kindness without boundaries invites destruction. Lie number 2, time is on your side. Wrong. Time doesn't wait, it erodes. Every moment you delay a decision, someone else with less talent and more courage takes what could have been yours. The clock isn't your ally, it's your competition. If you keep waiting for permission, the only thing you'll get is regret. Lie number 3, equality. You were told everyone's the same. That's a beautiful idea and completely false. Not everyone's willing to bleed for their ambition. Not everyone has the stomach to lead. Believing in blanket fairness is how you get blindsided by people who play by different rules. You want respect? Stop acting like everyone's playing the same game. Lie number 4, stability. Find a safe job, settle down, be grateful. But safety isn't peace, it's sedation. Comfort is a leash disguised as a reward. The more you cling to it, the more you soften, shrink, and silence yourself. Strategy lives in motion. Leadership is born in chaos. If you fear the unstable, you'll never master the battlefield. Lie number 5, guilt. They teach you to feel bad for wanting more, for saying no, for cutting people off. But guilt is just a tool, one used to keep you manageable. True authority begins when you act with clarity, not apology. If your decisions are driven by guilt, you're not leading, you're being led by ghosts. These lies sound noble on the surface, but they're cages underneath. And now that you see them, you can't unsee them. The real question is, will you still cling to them? Or are you ready to dismantle the script?
Attachment is the root of weakness. Attachment feels like loyalty. It disguises itself as love, morality, or even duty. But in reality, attachment is control wearing a smile. The more you need something or someone, the easier it is for that thing to control you. That's not strength, that's emotional dependency, and it leaves the door wide open for manipulation. You can't lead while clinging. You can't command respect while begging for approval. Every time you hesitate to walk away from something that drains you, you reinforce your own prison. Machiavellian insight makes it clear. The one who can detach is the one who dominates. Because he isn't held back by the fear of loss. He's powered by clarity. We're not just talking about people. We're talking about your identity, your image, the version of you that everyone expects. That persona you've curated to be accepted. It's also what's holding you hostage. Reinvention demands that you let old versions of yourself die. You can't rise while dragging the corpse of who you used to be. Here's a hard truth. People test what you're afraid to lose. The moment they feel your identity depends on them, they own you. The more attached you are to being liked, understood, or praised, the easier it is for them to bend your spine. You want to be untouchable? Let go of needing anything they can withhold. Practice detachment in real time. Delay your response. Walk away from conversations that feel off. Cut ties with patterns that drain your clarity. You don't have to hate anything to release it. You just have to value your peace more than your history. That is what maturity in power looks like. And let's not forget comfort, the most seductive attachment of all. It tells you to stay put, to take the easy win, to preserve stability. But comfort doesn't care if you grow. It only wants you quiet, controlled, predictable. And you're not here to be any of those things. You're here to be formidable. Detachment isn't cold, it's disciplined. It's the ability to say, if this no longer serves who I'm becoming, I'll leave it behind. And when you master that, you stop reacting and start replacing.
Emotion is a predictable trap. The moment they know how to push your buttons, they own your behavior. Emotional reactivity is the leash that keeps lions acting like pets. When you're ruled by emotion, you're not making choices, you're being directed. And the worst part? You're usually applauded for being authentic while they study your reactions like a game board. Anger, guilt, fear, insecurity, each is a lever that, once pulled, bypasses your logic. If someone knows they can make you flinch, apologize, or lash out, you've already lost control. This is why Machiavellian minds operate with emotional distance, not because they don't feel, but because they refuse to be ruled by feelings. Self-mastery isn't about being emotionless. It's about knowing when to show it, when to hide it, and when to weaponize it. Your anger can destroy, or it can be redirected into silence so sharp it's deafening. Your sadness can paralyze you, or remind you what you will never tolerate again. The key is strategy. Start training yourself in moments of conflict. Don't react immediately. Watch. Observe. Take a breath. Ask yourself, does a reaction serve my position or sabotage it. Most of the time, silence wins more than shouting ever could. A calm stare in a stormy room commands more respect than a dozen angry words. You don't owe the world your raw emotion, especially not when it's used against you. Learn to express your truth without losing your edge. That's where real influence lives. Not in explosions, but in precision. Emotional intelligence isn't softness. It's knowing when softness is a trap. Let your presence say what your words don't need to. Become unreadable, not mysterious out of pride, but out of power. The less predictable you are, the more others hesitate. And when they hesitate, you control the pace, the outcome, the narrative. That's emotional strategy at its finest. And once you master that inner pause, that tiny space between stimulus and response, you'll unlock the one thing emotion can never give you: leverage.
Silence is the purest form of power. Silence makes people nervous. They can't read it, can't predict it, and certainly can't control it. In a world addicted to over-explaining and constant noise, the one who speaks the least often holds the most power. Machiavelli understood this well. True authority isn't loud. It's quiet, still, and surgical. When you speak, you reveal. When you stay silent, you observe. People fill silence with assumptions, fears, and confessions. They interpret your stillness however their insecurity dictates. And that's the game. Letting others project while you remain unmoved, calculating every reaction without lifting a finger. Silence is not passivity, it's position. It's the decision to act only when the outcome is favorable, not emotional. When you pause before responding, you shift the power dynamic. You create tension, gravity, influence. Silence turns the tables because it says, I don't need to react. I'm in control. Want to test this? The next time someone challenges you, don't respond. Hold eye contact. Let the silence breathe. Watch how uncomfortable they get. The silence will do the work. It creates pressure, forces them to fill the gap, and reveals more about them than words ever could. It's psychological warfare with no casualties. People fear the unreadable. They trust those who stay composed under pressure. If your energy is constantly reactive, you become predictable, and what's predictable is controllable. Silence, however, keeps them guessing. It creates presence, and presence is power without effort. You don't need to explain your decisions to those who never respected your boundaries. You don't need to justify your worth. The more silent you become, the more weight your words carry when you finally speak. Silence makes your voice a weapon, sharp, rare, unforgettable. And once you've tasted the authority that comes from controlled silence, you'll never waste your breath proving yourself again. Reinvention requires the death of who you were. You can't evolve while clinging to your past. Reinvention demands sacrifice, not of your values, but of your old identity. The version of you built on apology, hesitation, and approval-seeking has to die, because you can't lead carrying the weight of who you were trained to be. Leadership begins when the old mask cracks. Reinvention isn't graceful, it's brutal. People will resist your change, not because it's wrong, but because it threatens the comfort they had in your weakness. When you stop explaining yourself,
When you stop showing up to be understood, they'll say you've changed, and that's the point. You were never meant to stay digestible. Machiavelli understood that perception is power. The moment you change how you move, you change how others treat you. Reinvention is psychological warfare, not against them, but against your old self. You must silence the version of you that made others comfortable at the cost of your potential. So how do you begin? You start with subtraction. Remove what numbs your clarity, people, routines, beliefs. Rebuild not from what you inherited, but from what you chose. If it doesn't align with your next level, it doesn't survive. Reinvention isn't about adding more, it's about cutting deeper. Practical example: stop explaining your boundaries. State them once, calmly, clearly, and let your actions do the rest. Dress differently, speak less, move more decisively. Change your environment if needed. The more uncomfortable you feel shedding the old, the closer you are to becoming something new. But don't expect applause. Expect silence. Expect distance. Reinvention isolates you because growth offends those who stopped growing. You'll lose people, but gain gravity. That's the price, and you either pay it willingly or keep paying with your dignity in silence. And once the old version of you is buried, when you no longer flinch, chase, or explain, you'll start to build something rare, a presence that doesn't need validation to be felt.
Comfort is the enemy of ambition. Comfort is a slow, silent killer. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It tells you to rest before you've earned it, to be proud before you've built anything real. It wraps you in softness while slowly erasing your edge. Comfort doesn't protect you, it sedates you. And when you finally wake up, the world has moved on without you. People don't fail because they lack skill. They fail because they stop moving. When your life becomes too predictable, your ambition starts to rot. The same routine, the same safe people, the same excuses dressed as gratitude. You're not supposed to be grateful for a cage just because it's lined with velvet. Machiavellian logic is simple. Power grows in discomfort. You don't sharpen steel by hugging it. You sharpen it by friction. Growth requires risk, pressure, and isolation. If everything in your life feels stable, you're probably standing still. And nothing standing still commands real influence. Here's a quick way to measure yourself. When was the last time you felt stretched? Not busy, stretched. When was the last time your heart pounded from taking a risk you couldn't fully control? If it's been a while, chances are you've traded progress for peace. And peace without growth is just a quiet form of decline. So what can you do? Break patterns. Say yes to the hard thing. Start the business. Cut the tie. Speak the truth that could cost you approval. Don't just flirt with discomfort, marry it. Build the version of you that thrives in the unknown. That's where ambition is forged, in the tension between fear and movement. You weren't built for neutrality. You were built to lead. And leaders don't sit in safety. They burn the map and keep walking. When you stop fearing discomfort, you stop fearing growth. And when that happens, no one can freeze you with judgment or manipulate you with comfort again.
Emotional control is the ultimate leverage. If they can control how you feel, they control how you act. Emotional control is the hidden lever behind every power dynamic. You may think you're making decisions, but if you're angry, afraid, or desperate, you're reacting. And reaction is the language of weakness. Machiavelli taught, never let others dictate your internal state.
Those who master emotion can weaponize logic. They stay calm when provoked, observant when insulted, calculated when betrayed. Emotional control isn't about being cold, it's about being clear. When you don't need to prove anything, your presence becomes heavy. You move with silence, but everyone feels the weight. Here's the trap. Society rewards emotional impulsivity. Outrage is currency. Victimhood sells. But that game is designed to keep you powerless. Real influence doesn't panic. It doesn't scream. It doesn't over-explain. Emotional control isn't just discipline, it's strategy. It turns every situation into a chessboard, not a battlefield. So how do you practice it? Start with small resistance. Delay your reaction when something triggers you. Sit with it. Breathe through it. Observe it like a scientist, not a victim. Use journaling, Stoic readings, or Machiavelli himself to train your mind to think before it flares. Self-mastery begins where the impulse ends. Control your face, control your voice, control your pace. The more others see that you're not easily moved, the more they'll start adapting to your rhythm. That's how leaders are born, not by dominance, but by emotional gravity. You pull the room toward your silence, not your outbursts. And here's the best part. Once they realize they can't shake you, they start respecting you or fearing you. Either way, you win. Because in this world, power belongs to those who are hardest to provoke and slowest to react. Authority isn't loud, it's unshakable. And when your emotions no longer control you, your enemies lose their favorite weapon.
Stop asking for permission to exist. The moment you start waiting for approval, you give away your power. Machiavelli never sought permission. He understood that authority is claimed, not granted. You weren't born to ask if you're allowed to speak, move, or lead. You were born to take space, to command it, and to let the world adjust. Stop dimming your presence for people who fear your potential. This world conditions you to seek validation. Family, school, work, they all teach you the same lesson. Be agreeable, be nice, be small. But agreeable men don't make history. They get forgotten. If you want respect, you must stop auditioning for roles in other people's narratives. Write your own and let them catch up. Power responds to boldness, not obedience. Have you noticed how the most respected people are the least apologetic? They don't ask, "Can I?" They say, "Watch me." If you keep asking for permission, you'll spend your life standing at doors that were never meant to open for you. Build your own entrance. Here's something actionable. Stop over-explaining yourself. Say what you believe, act on your values. Don't give 3 disclaimers before speaking your truth. The world doesn't remember the polite, it remembers the powerful. Read the 48 Laws of Power or revisit Machiavelli's The Prince and you'll see presence matters more than perfection. And that includes body language. Stand straight. Speak slowly. Hold eye contact. These small behaviors tell the world, I belong here. Because every time you apologize for existing, you reinforce a lie, that your worth is conditional. It's not.
And deep down, you already know that. People may label you arrogant. Let them. The weak will always feel offended by unapologetic strength. But arrogance is not confidence. It's clarity. And clarity cuts through confusion like a blade. You don't need to prove yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, because when you stop asking for permission, you finally start living with authority.
Become the consequence, not the apology. At some point, you must decide, will you be remembered as a lesson or as a warning? Weak men apologize for existing. Strong men become consequences. Not in a cruel way, but in a way that says, if you cross me, there's a price. That is authority. That is leadership. And that is how you shift from being used to being respected. Society trains you to be soft, to be understanding, forgiving, reasonable. And yes, kindness has its place. But when it becomes a mask to avoid conflict, it robs you of power. You weren't born to be a doormat wrapped in virtue. You were born to be a standard. And standards don't beg for acceptance. They demand alignment. Machiavelli would tell you, a leader doesn't just respond, he redefines the terms. If someone lies to you, disrespects you, or tries to manipulate you, your reaction teaches them what they can get away with. Be slow to anger, but firm in response. Let your boundaries speak louder than your emotions. Here's a strategy. Create silent consequences. Don't argue, withdraw. Don't beg, disappear. Don't threaten, execute. When people see that disrespect has a cost, they start thinking twice about doing so again. This isn't revenge. This is autodominio. It's influence rooted in principle, and it's one of the greatest forms of emotional power you can build. You don't have to scream, just be consistent. The man who becomes a consequence doesn't chase, he attracts. He doesn't warn, he acts. And those who once underestimated him start adjusting their behavior in his presence. That's when you know you've shifted from victim to force. Let others be liked, you be remembered. Let others be soft, you be undeniable. When you live by principle, you don't need to justify your power. You just embody it. And those who meet you either rise to your level or get left behind in silence. Because when you become the consequence, weakness stops calling your name.
So now the question isn't, am I weak? It's, how much longer will I tolerate being weaker than I could be? You've just been handed a weapon, not to destroy others, but to destroy every version of yourself that was built on fear, silence, and apology. What you do with that weapon is entirely on you. Power isn't found in pretending to be someone else. It's born in the silence of self-discipline, in the clarity of emotional control, in the strategy of every choice you make. Machiavelli didn't write for the masses. He wrote for those ready to rule their own inner kingdom. Are you ready to rule yours? If something in this video shook you, good. It was supposed to. Maybe it hit exactly where you needed, that place inside you that's tired of shrinking to make others comfortable. What part of you is still asking for permission to be powerful? What old pattern do you need to let die? Let that question echo in your mind long after this video ends. In fact, tell me, what truth from today's video hit you hardest? Comment below. Not for me, but for you. Writing it makes it real. Facing it makes it yours. And someone else reading it might finally wake up too. If you found value here, don't keep it to yourself. Power is contagious, but only if it's shared. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next lesson. Because this journey into strategy, influence, self-mastery, and leadership is just getting started. And don't leave yet. There's a complimentary video appearing right now on your screen and in the description that will take this transformation even deeper. Watch it next, because real change doesn't happen in moments, it happens in momentum. Let's keep building yours.